So hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of You Talk It, We Live It, the podcast for working people, made by working people. Of course, you have me, your host, Emily, and our co-host, River. Would you like to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you all again. We are happy to be back.
Yes, and today we're really, really pleased. We have Betsy Leondar-Wright on the program. A little bit about Miss Wright here is she is a board member of the national anti-classism organization known as Class Action. She's also an author who's written a book called Missing Class, Strengthening Social Movement Groups by Seeing Class Structures. And somehow she also has managed to fit into what I think sounds like a busy schedule, being a professor of sociology at LaSalle University. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I'm so pleased you asked me. Good to be with you.
So for starters, what I would like to ask is if you could just maybe give us a little bit of background about yourself and maybe explain your area of expertise.
Sure. Yeah, so I have been an activist mostly for economic justice, but also other progressive social justice causes for more than, 35 years. And that's my main identity in life is activist. And my class background, I know you're a very working class identified show, which is super awesome. So I grew up with quite a bit of class privilege. I grew up upper middle class in the suburbs of New Jersey. So becoming an adult and becoming an activist was a big eye opener for me. I've learned a lot from people who, as your title says, people who live it, gotten my eyes open. And I've had the great good fortune of getting to work with activists from, I believe, the entire class spectrum in the US. I just focus on the US. That has opened my eyes a lot and given me the sense that we all, wherever our background comes from, whoever we are, wherever we live, whatever identities, we can push this towards being a fairer economy. We all have roles to play.
You mentioned your organization, Class Action. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so one thing that your audience needs to know is that the website is classism.org, because of course, if you try to Google our organizational name, Class Action, you get a lot of stuff about lawsuits. So not a good name that way. So it's about 15 years old and it's national. And we basically work with organizations, institutions to help reduce organizational classism. So within the realm of, multicultural and diversity and equity and inclusion trainers and consultants, which, there's tens of thousands focus on race and gender and other important things. We are the only one. We've got about 20 trainers, and we're the only one where class is front and center. Most don't include classism at all. One of the big things we do is work with first-generation college students. That's one of our biggest programs, who often come with wonderful, diverse working class cultures to colleges and have immediate culture clash. And if with good support and pride, have really positive outcomes both for themselves and for bringing working class culture into their college.
That is great work.
Great work, hard work, work that needs to be done.
That's right. My project within Class Action is one about how much nonprofits pay and how they treat their employees. There's a lot of organizations whose missions are anti-poverty, who help people in need, consider themselves very progressive, but their own employees have just terrible working conditions, terrible pay. And often that's not because of any bad will, it's shortage of funding. So that's staffing the mission is another part of Class Action's work.
To me, that definitely intersects with things like ableism, racism that we're seeing addressed, all of which gets brought to the forefront when you add an intense, powerful stressor, such as, off the top of my head, a global pandemic.
Right.
How are you seeing that interaction play with class in what you do in your roles as both an activist and sociologist?
Yeah, so we've been dividing by class with a big race correlation with that. We've been dividing into basically two economies over the last 25, 30 years, but accelerating where, it's been a great economy for college educated professionals who have money in the stock market, but it's been just an increasingly awful economy for working class people who work for wages. We have a major crisis. And of course, the rates of COVID are completely correlate with that it's these places where people are frontline workers, can't work from home. Obviously, all the healthcare workers, the people who directly handle people's bodies, all these women of color in nursing homes and hospitals and every place are the highest at risk. It's a real gendered economic depression we're in right now, because most of the categories that crashed and burned are women's work.
Honestly, this has been definitely a real pleasure for me. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I've already started reading through your book, and I would encourage anyone listening to this to go over to classism.org and look at those trainings, read through these books and learn about it, because most of us are on that working class spectrum, and we need to know how to voice for our own needs. You already know you're not being heard. Now find out how to make yourself heard. Thank you so very, very much for joining us today. Thank you, Emily, for being with us here on You Talk It, You Live It. And you guys all have a great day.
Thanks, Emily. And thanks,
Right.
for